What is up, guys, and today we're taking a look at a smartwatch, except this isn't your average Android Wear or cheap Chinese knockoff watch. This is the Domino DM98 smartwatch, and it goes for about 80 bucks. The first thing you may have noticed is the shape of this watch isn't what you usually see on a normal smartwatch. Usually you're going to have your square or circular screen, but instead with this, you have a rectangular capacitive 2.2 inch 320 by 240 pixel screen that goes long ways up your arm. As well, instead of running Google's Android Wear OS made specifically for smartwatches, this thing is straight up just running a customized version of Android 4.4, which is KitKat. Now that version of Android is a bit old, but with the way everything is done on this watch, it doesn't really matter. What's cool about having a watch that runs straight up Android and not like a mini watch version is that you can literally download any app or game off of the Google Play Store. You can watch YouTube on this thing, search the web, and much more. Just expect it to be a bit slower, and remember that you won't be able to do everything a normal phone can do just because the specs aren't as up there, and well, it's a watch. Also, typing on this thing is an absolute pain in the butt since you have to use that tiny keyboard, but after a while you do get used to it, but at first it's going to take you probably 2 or 3 tries to hit the right letter every time. So looking at the watch's OS as a whole, you're always greeted with this home screen which gives you some basic info as well as the time. As well, you can choose from a number of different themes to change up the look. When swiping from the right of the home screen, you'll get to see a notification hub showing all your recent things that have been going on your watch. If you swipe to the left, you'll be shown your pedometer, another swipe and you'll be shown a phone icon for you to call people, and one more time and you'll get to see the weather. If you swipe up from the home screen, you'll get a little control center which lets you adjust brightness, volume, and some other things. If you swipe down from the home screen, you get this panel that gives you some extra information on the current status of your smartwatch. And finally, by tapping on your home screen, you'll be brought to your app drawer where you can see every single app you have installed. One more thing I want to mention that I don't really like but sort of got used to is the distortion on the screen when you press it with a decent amount of strength. It's not a deal breaker or anything, but sometimes it's just a little bit annoying. As well, if you're trying to look at this thing outdoors and the sun is shining right on it, the visibility is going to be bad. Taking a look at the physical part of the watch, this thing is made completely out of metal and glass, which is really nice since a lot of non-main brand watches tend to end up using plastic construction. There's a total of one button which works like a home button and power button combined, and it's located on the right side of the watch. When in an app, pressing it will bring you to the home screen, and pressing it at the home screen will put the watch into sleep mode. Next to the power/home button is also a microphone. Then if you look to the left side of the watch, you'll see the speaker, which I was actually really surprised with. It is definitely loud enough for a smartwatch and it sounds pretty nice. Even at full volume, I didn't even hear any distortion. On the front of the watch, something I bet you've already noticed is the camera. It's 1.3 megapixels and definitely isn't good, but I guess it's cool for maybe checking yourself out when you need to, or whatever. On the back of the watch, you'll find your pins for charging, which is pretty nice on the smartwatch. You just drop it onto the charging pins and those will weakly hold it onto the watch via some magnets. Next to that is the Nano SIM card slot / micro SD card slot, which has a little cover on it. If you decide to use this slot for an SD card, you'll be able to expand the rather small 4GB of storage that is included on this thing. Or since it does support the use of a SIM card, you can also use the mic and speaker in combination to make calls on this thing or even send a text message. Now that's all cool and I'm sure some people will like that feature, but I never really got into that. I almost always preferred to do things on my phone since it offered just such a much nicer experience. And finally, the bands on this thing are made of this extremely flexible rubber and they're pretty comfortable. Going over some specs, inside this thing you'll find 512 megabytes of RAM, which is perfectly average for a smartwatch. It's the exact same amount as the Apple Watch and Moto 360 2nd Gen have. As well, like I stated before, this also has 4GB of storage, which can be expanded via a micro SD card. Also in this thing is a 900 mAh battery which lasts a pretty decent amount of time. The battery would usually end up lasting me about 2 days, and on standby this thing could go for about 4 or maybe 5-ish days. Inside this watch is also a pedometer, GPS, and a 1.2 GHz dual core processor. So overall, this thing is going to be able to run a reasonable amount of things, but just realize that games and apps that aren't basic-ish may take longer to load or simply won't work at all. For example, if you tried to run Asphalt 8 on this thing, it'd probably self-destruct. Overall, this smartwatch is definitely pretty cool in the sense that it's not your average smartwatch shape. It's made of quality materials and the freedom you have with it compared to things like the Apple Watch or anything running Android Wear. Obviously, the OS this thing is running isn't nearly as professional as anything mainstream, but it's still pretty cool. I wouldn't say you need it, but if you have $80 burning a hole in your pocket, then you might be able to mess around with this thing and have some fun with it. Thanks for watching. The link to this watch will be in the description below. As well, don't forget to subscribe for more awesome weekly videos. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.